start recording. All right, so today what we're going to talk about is credit. What the heck is credit? A lot of you guys, you sit there and you just use your debit cards and not even think about it, right? The reason why you don't think about it is because you don't have any money in your hands. If you saw the money in your hands disappear, you wouldn't use as much, would you? Right? Banks have got you by using cards. They're prepping you to get your own credit. Okay? Now, why would we get credit? I want you to watch this quick video on credit, and we'll talk about it. Here we go.
So what exactly is credit? What is it, and why is it so important? A simple definition of credit is using borrowed money to pay for something. Anything. Credit can be as simple as a person charging a new pair of shoes on a credit card, or as complex as a government borrowing billions to fund a budget deficit. A budget deficit is a slick way of saying a government spends more money in a given year than it collects in taxes, which in the United States has happened in 45 of the last 50 years. But before you criticize, remember, beginning in the 20th century, the U.S. used a deficit spending model for economic growth, and it worked pretty well because the U.S. has enjoyed dominance as the world's leading economy for nearly 100 years. But look out for China. Let's scale down and look at how credit works on a more personal level, like the pair of shoes.
So, for you guys, when you think about it, right? The government always is in deficit, right? They've used it to continue to prop up the economy and make money, right? For millions and millions of people. The only issue is, what happens when it's just you? Right? What happens when all you want is a new pair of kicks? Right? Let's see what they say.
In order to borrow money, a lender, usually a bank, faces the risk that the borrower won't be able to pay them back. In order to manage this risk, the lender will make it a point to learn as much as possible about the borrower so they don't encounter any surprises. Think about it.
So, when you think about it, right? Banks go and loan money, right? They got all the cash that everybody has, right? It's like a big pool. Here's the problem, Lily. If you go and borrow money from the bank, they need to know, are you able to pay that money back? Are you going to be a jerk and say, yo, I'm bankrupt, I can't pay, but I got my kicks, right? No, not happening, right? So banks will spend time to figure out if you are able to pay. This is what credit is all about, so pay close attention.
If someone has to borrow money from you, what are some things you'd want to know? You probably want to know the person's full name, their address and phone number if you need to contact them. You'll want to know if they have a job and make a decent income. You'll also want to know who else they borrowed money from and if they repaid those debts as agreed. Lenders want to know the same information, much of which can be found in a person's credit report. A credit report is a document. It lists a person's track record of paying back debts, kind of like a report card for how...
So, you've been to school, you understand what a report card is, right? Think of a credit report as a report on how you are with paying debts. If you've ever had a debt and you paid it off, if you ever had a debt and not paid it, if you've ever had a debt and missed a payment, they will know everything. Okay? So based on that, you get a credit score. A grade from like 300, which is really bad, to 850.
Well, you pay back your bills. One thing to remember is credit is not a bad thing. Credit enables families to purchase things like homes, vehicles, and other expensive items most people could never afford to pay cash for. As mentioned earlier, credit has fueled much of the economic growth in the United States because our government and corporations use credit, or borrowed money, by selling bonds to investors. Investors purchase the bonds which pay interest, just like you or I will pay interest if we borrow money to buy a new car. The key to using credit is to know when to use credit, when not to, and how much credit to use. When the credit system works right, it makes everyone happy. Borrowers are happy because they get to have new shoes, homes, and whatever else they want. And lenders are happy because they make money from interest while borrowers pay back their loans. As the money is repaid, they loan it out again, over and over, like a wheel that keeps on spinning. It's all about balance. Learn to use credit when it makes sense, stay clear of credit when it doesn't, and enjoy the ride.
All right. Now, when you think of credit, you always think of credit cards, right? Now, here's what I need you to understand, right? When you talk about credit, we're actually talking about everyone's financial reality, right? You guys don't have $300,000 to $600,000 to buy your own car or house. Did you hear that? Right? Now, you need to buy stuff, right? But you don't have the money now. So that's when we look to our credit score, okay? Now, credit can be a helpful tool that will assist us in having a lifestyle you desire, but it can also work against you and cause problems. It's easy to overextend your credit. Overextending your credit means that you buy something, but you're not able to pay it off outright and not pay any interest on it. Okay? So a lot of people tend to buy too much and then end up having to pay their stuff out that they need over time. And sometimes that over time, instead of taking a couple weeks or months, it takes several years. And you'll know that certain types of credit, like a credit card, is crazy. The interest rates are crazy. Now, managing your credit is an essential part of your personal money management practices, right? If you manage it well, credit card companies, loan companies, and other loaning institutions will use that credit score that we talked about earlier to decide whether you're going to get the loan that you want. Okay? Now, there are 3 types of credit. Ready? We have installment type credit, right? We have revolving credit, okay? And we have open credit, okay? Now, let's go and take a look at each type of credit. So if we click on installment credit, right? Installment credit is just literally, right, merchandising and services that are paid in one or more regular scheduled payments. So let's say you go to Canadian Tire and they say, hey, we'll give you credit for buying your tires because we know you need tires, right? But because you're giving us a sale, we'll give you 12 equal installments with no interest on this thing on your credit card. That is what we call installment credit. Does that make sense? Now, the next kind of credit that you hear about is this. Oh, wait, let's finish. The money may be borrowed for a specific purpose, and the specific purpose could be buying your cars, whatever, right? But you don't end up owning any money. Sometimes they add a light bit of interest. Now, the next type of interest we have is revolving credit, right? Many items can be bought with revolving credit as long as the total doesn't go over the credit's user's assigned amount, right? So remember the installment credit. The installment credit could be something that the organization that you're borrowing from gives you money for, and you just pay it out with these regular installments. But this one, this revolving credit, right, says, hey, you got like $2,000 to use every month, right? And if you buy, say, food on this and then go pay for your gas on this and then buy all these different things, that's what we call revolving credit, right? Now, the revolving credit only goes to a maximum that you're given, right? When they tell you your repayment schedule, right, they usually tell you stuff like, you know what, if you pay this in a month, you're not going to have any interest on it, right? But if you have interest on it, so let's say you don't finish it, then the overall interest for the year will be 27%, and you agree to that. That is what a credit card is, okay? Now, let's talk about the open credit system. So when you talk about the open credit system, open credit systems are items and services that are paid for in a single payment within a given period of time. So, ready? Don't pay for 12 months. You've heard those ones where you buy something and they say, boom, it's open, but then you have to pay it out on the day, or else you have to pay that plus interest in order to keep the thing. Okay? So remember, when they go and tell you, hey, I'm going to let you take that thing, and then after X number of weeks, if you haven't paid them, we're going to add some interest on it or add some number of months. Does that make sense? All right. So now, here's what I want you to understand. One of the craziest types of things that are out there, we talked about it a while ago, is called a thing called a payday loan. Not many people have actually taken the time to understand what that is. A payday loan, you have to be very cautious with, because though it sounds good to be true, right? They say, hey, you can borrow up to $2,000, right? If you make $2,000 and you borrow $2,000 today to go and pay your rent, right? All you got to do is just give us our money back on your payday, right? But what happens if you miss that payday? What happens if you don't pay your check? You're going to get hit with fees. Now, the craziest part is in Ontario and Canada, we have payday loans, right? And there's a stupid law. Sorry, let's not call it stupid. An unresearched law that no one knows about. The total charges, i.e. stuff like penalties that you pay for, and your interest must not total a total of 60% per year or per payment, right? Notice I said 60%. Let's say I owed $1,000, okay? And, ready? I missed my payment, right? I would end up having to pay upwards of 60% total in taxes. Now, not in taxes, in payments. So you may owe an extra 20% for it, but you know what they'll do? They will also put late fees on your payment to make it total up to 60% of the original. You get that? We call that predatory credit practices. And they have, listen to me now, there are lots of payday loans out there that put you in that situation. You start small with a small amount of money, say $300. You miss the payment. Oh, geez, wait a second. Why do I owe $580 now? That's like stupid. How did I miss that? I missed one payment, I owe $580? And then you miss another payment because you haven't paid off the $580, right? So you're constantly paying 60% of what you have left. And you do that, and then you get into a cycle, and then it wrecks your credit history because you know what? You haven't paid off your debt. Yeah? All right, now let's talk about the 3 C's of credit. All right? So, when you talk about credit, there are 3 things that you need to understand. Listen very carefully. When you borrow money or take out a loan, there's always a risk that you may not pay it back. Before lenders go and take that risk on you, right, they have to consider 3 general factors. They have to consider the collateral that they're giving up to you. They have to consider the capacity and your character. Okay? Are you somebody that says, I need to borrow this money and I need it for something and I'm going to pay it back, right? They need to know, right? Now, those things here, I'm going to talk about it. When you talk about the 3 C's of credit, we have character. Will you repay the debt, right? From your credit report, the lender can actually take a look at all the debts that you've had in your life and whether you've paid them or not, or you've missed payments, right? Now, then there's also the capacity. Hey, can you actually repay the debt, right? So the lender actually wants to know if you've been working regularly in an occupation that's likely to provide enough money to be able to support your credit use, right? They also look at your salary and how long you've been at your job, as whether you have any other loans that you got to pay that may interfere with you paying back their debt, right? Then the last thing is collateral. Hey man, what do you have to give them to guarantee the loan, right? Is there someone in your life that's willing to guarantee the loan? So if you screw up, they can come after them. Does that make sense? If you screw up, they can take your car. You get me? Right? The lender will want to know if you have any assets that can be used to repay the credit in case your income isn't there and you got to still pay. All right, now let's go back to the activity. So when we talk about the credit rating, we talk about those 3 C's, right? So when we talk about credit rating, they're also going to look at your credit rating or credit score, which is found on your credit report. Your credit report is made up of information about you, your credit use, and repayment history. The information is gathered from other financial institutions. So if you're at one bank and you switch to another, they'll have information on you that they have to get from those banks, right? The information is gathered, and listen to this. The higher the score that you have, the better your credit rating. However, having good credit doesn't necessarily mean you're financially well off. It just means you're a good risk because you have the capacity and history of paying your debts. Now, checking on your own credit rating once each year is a great idea. Now, listen very carefully, because some of these institutions screw up and go and put bills that are on your stuff that say that you haven't paid them. Or, as a big mistake with my auntie, who was an accountant, they went and put someone else's bad credit on her credit rating. And it took her 1.5 years to get it fixed. Right? And because of that, they ended up having higher interest loans for their house because of it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, my father, for like a good year, 2 years, he was using like small bits of money here and there. But over 2 years, that amounted to like 10,000.
Yes, and then when your dad went to go get like a new loan for something like a car or something, the bank is looking at that and said, "Why do you have a $10,000 loan that you've been paying for like 2 years?" Am I right? And they would give you a difficult amount of time. They give you a difficult time to get the loan and probably give you a higher interest rate because of that. Does that make sense? Right? Now, remember what I told you. Checking your own credit history once in a while is a good thing. There are 2 different credit rating systems that are used. We have TransUnion and Equifax. A lot of your banks nowadays give you access to your credit history in your banking accounts, your online banking accounts. You can actually check it. But only check it once in a while, because if you keep touching the account, then the bank system says, "Hey, what the heck? Somebody keeps checking your credit history." That means you're probably trying to get loans somewhere, right? Now, remember the 2 types are TransUnion and Equifax, right? Those are the 2 agencies that we use in Canada to report credit ratings. Building a good credit rating is important, even if you don't wish to have credit at present, right? So for you guys have Visa debits, right? Use your Visa debits online and just make sure that your Visa debit, that your bank account has enough money when you make a payment online with your Visa debit through Amazon, okay? Or eBay or Apple, right? Now, building a good credit rating is very important, even if you don't want to use it, right? You may want to in the next couple of years. So when you want to buy a house or a car, your credit rating is very important. So you got to build your credit rating as soon as you can. You guys are almost 18. I would tell you to get a credit card, but here's what I would tell you. Make sure you talk to your parents about the size of how much you would have on your credit card, right? You need to start small. Start with like $100, $200, maybe less, and work from there, because you don't want to use up your credit card and have like a $3,000 owing on your credit card, and you're only making $500 a week. You understand?
Yeah.
All right. Now, so let's see. Do you know how to build a good credit rating? All right, so I'm actually going to put this up online, but today what you're going to do is you're going to talk about, I'm going to give you 3 questions, right? You're going to answer them based on this credit stuff that we talked about, and then we're going to go and work on this next bit in class. And